Senator, great to have you. I kind of thought you might come out in a hoodie and some shorts just to sort of pay tribute to the Senate. That has to be one of the most talked about things going on behind the scenes at the Senate right now.
Governor, it truly is. This is an embarrassment for the people of Pennsylvania. You know, when you and I go to a wedding, we get dressed up. We put on a suit and a tie to honor the bride and groom. You go to a funeral. We put on a dark suit, a tie to honor the deceased, the family. When I go to the Senate, to the Senate chamber, I wear a suit and tie to honor the people of Kansas. This is an insult to the people of Pennsylvania, to the people of America, to our founding fathers.
I'm surprised that Senator Schumer relaxed that rule, and even some of the Democrats are now speaking out against it. So it hasn't gone over that well, has it?
No, it's not. It's good to see Dick Durbin, the majority whip, to speak out against it as well. And we have some legislation. We're going to fight back on it. I do think that there's a certain decorum that Americans expect from the United States Senate.
Before you came to the Senate, you were a medical doctor. You built a very successful medical practice. And as I said in the introduction, delivered 5,000 babies. That's almost as many people as live in most small towns in America. What led you to say, I'm going to leave the wonderful state of Kansas and go to the devil's town and do the Lord's work and try to be a congressman and then a senator? What was the catalyst that led you to do that?
Well, Governor, I think there are certain moments in your life when God speaks to you, and usually God speaks to me through my wife. And
we're all relating to that, aren't we? Yes, we are.
Now, by the way, my wife is here tonight. We just had our 40th anniversary.
Congratulations. Wonderful.
So it's 2015, one of the worst economies of our lifetime. We weren't real happy with the White House, and we had our first grandchild. And she looked at me and said, look, this country's really broken. You like to fix things. It's time to go.
Wow.
Much like joining the military. It's what this job feels like, is serving our nation.
You're going through some incredible challenges right now. Inflation is hurting working families. And I don't get it that the folks necessarily at the White House fully appreciate that inflation is a gut punch to American families.
Yeah, the White House is tone deaf in so many issues. Certainly the number one concern I hear from Kansans is the price of gasoline, the price of groceries, the cost of utilities. That's the number one concern. Interest rates. You know, it costs twice as much for your first mortgage payment when you buy a new house today than it did when Joe Biden was sworn into the White House. The mortgage payment has literally doubled. That idea, that American dream that you and I grew up with, you know, we wanted to buy a house, have a fishing boat and a truck. That's almost unsustainable in today's world right now for young kids. We have 4 kids, 2 of them married with 2 little children. My parents living more, you know, paycheck to paycheck, Social Security check to Social Security check. Certainly it's hard times, number one concern for Americans.
When we're talking about some of these issues, one of the big ones that I think a lot of Americans scratch their head and say, how come this is going on? There is a mess at the border. It breaks my heart because I know there are little kids who are being trafficked as sex slaves, being pulled across this border. There are people who are hopeful, they dream and they want to come, and they're not bad people. But they've been duped into believing that if they can just step across the border, that America's going to take care of every need they have. And now we're beginning to see that's simply not realistic.
Right. So under Joe Biden, I guess some 6-7 million people have entered this country illegally. Our open southern border is the number one most immediate national security threat our nation faces. We're losing over 300 young Americans every day to fentanyl poisoning. Fentanyl made in China, delivered through the cartel across our southern border. It is cheaper to get a fentanyl tablet and easier in Kansas than it is a piece of pizza. For $1 a tablet, you can have this delivered to your house. The cartel now literally spread throughout Kansas, through your home state of Arkansas as well. The cartel is alive and well. And by the way, they're making more money on human trafficking now than they even are on the fentanyl.
You know, when we had Jim Caviezel and Tim Ballard here talking about the movie Sound of Freedom, they were mentioning that the cartels are making more money, just what you said. And at first you think, how could they be making more money? But you take a pill, it's over. You have a human victim of trafficking, and they get used 10, 12 times a day for years. So, you know, when I see what's going on, you know, my heart breaks because there are families that have great hopes. That's not the issue at the border. It's that people are bringing over the drugs, and they're not staying at the border. They're going all over America to small towns and places where a lot of folks wouldn't think it goes. That's what's really threatening the country. Senator, I want you to stay with us because we're going to take a break. When we come back, we've got a lot more to talk about with Senator Marshall. And welcome back. We're visiting with Senator Roger Marshall of Kansas. Senator, when we were talking before, we spent a lot of time talking about the border, but Republicans right now, in many ways, are embroiled in the discussion about the sanctity of human life. You're one of the most pro-life members of either house of Congress, and I think maybe because as an obstetrician, you've kind of seen birth up close and personal, 5,000 deliveries. What is the message that maybe we should be helping Americans to understand about the value of every single human life?
Oh, Governor, I think that, people ask me what was the favorite part of being an OB doctor? And my favorite moment was always hearing that baby's first cry and handing that baby to the new mom and hopefully dad in the room. And to see this for the first time in my life, it was this awakening for what God's love must be like for us. To see this mom just unconditional love for this baby as well. I think we have to just keep sharing that message, Governor, but I also think we need to be a message of encouragement to those young ladies that are struggling. Yeah. I've taken care of so many young girls, 14, 15, or 16, and they were deciding what to do. And we would say, look, I can take care of you with obstetrically, but it was great to have so many resources in my community to do more than just that. Starting with keeping that young lady in school, making sure she has proper nutrition, and the clothing, all that support as well. And then once that baby's born, is to continue to love on that mom and that new baby.
And I think sometimes we don't emphasize enough that when an abortion happens, there are two victims. The obvious one is the baby, but the other is that birth mother who wasn't told the full story of what was happening to her and what was being done to her and, the challenges that she'll have later. So I'm grateful, as you are, for a lot of the crisis pregnancy centers around the country. They don't get enough credit for the love and the compassion and the affirmation that they give to the birth moms and the help, just the practical things that you just mentioned, which are so valuable. And I hope that that becomes a bigger part of our message as a pro-life world. I think that's critically important.
We need to share the compassion we have for the mom, for the baby. Show them that you love them. Surround them with all the love you can. Give them rides to the doctor's appointment. Get them rides to the grocery store. Whatever you can do, just to surround them with all the support and love you can.
We're facing in a few more days possible government shutdown, budget crisis. Where do you see this ending? Is it going to be resolved? Are we going to see a shutdown? And if so, is that a good or a horrible thing to happen?
Well, Governor, I don't know that I've got a crystal ball, but I just want everybody, all your listeners, to understand the gravity of the situation, that our national debt is finally coming home to roost. That this year alone, the federal government is going to spend $2 trillion more than we take in. We're going to spend $700 billion on interest alone. Anyone that's ran a business, ran a state like you have, realize when you're that far underwater, when you're paying the bank that much money, there's just not enough money left to give the troops a raise, to take care of some people's health care, those types of challenges as well. So this is really coming home to roost. Whatever it takes for America, for Congress to finally face up to the budget crisis we're in. If that takes shutting the government down for a couple of weeks in order to get our arms around the problem, I'm willing to do that.
I think a lot of people just want there to be a wake-up call in Washington, because a government can't spend money it doesn't have and borrow money it can't afford to pay back, and we're doing both. And it seems like that at some point, somebody's got to say, this won't just continue, or our grandkids will not be living in an America like we knew it.
Governor, I'm sure nobody ever came to you and said, we want less money this year.
No, they didn't.
And we're spending now 20% more than we should be on every program. And so when I tell people painfully, no, I can't support this program anymore, as a matter of fact, we need to cut it down a little bit, no one seems to be happy. But we need to stay focused on the next generation, like you just said. Focus on the next generation, not the next election. I'm going to make the right decision. Every day I pray that God will give me justice, that I'll love mercy, and of course, walk humbly. So that's what my prayer is. And I hope that all your listeners are praying for Congress to find out what that justice looks like as we face this budget debt crisis.
Senator, I want to say, I think a lot of us as Americans are grateful that you are there with your convictions, your values, the world that you have lived in, and you're taking those to Washington. You haven't changed. You're still that guy that grew up in a small town in Kansas. You've taken that heart with you. How grateful all of us need to be for your service. Thank you for your service, and thank you for being here with us.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.